Imagine the single most anticipated military leader in history finally arrives, right? To liberate an occupied
Oh,
territory.
yeah. The tension is huge.
Right, and everyone completely expects him to wage this brutal, fiery war of independence, but instead he just starts like healing the enemy commanders.
Which is wild.
It's totally wild. Welcome to the deep dive. And actually, before we plunge into this incredible history, I just want to take a quick moment to welcome you, yes, you listening right now, and just offer a divine blessing for your day and for the entire week ahead of you. May it be filled with clarity, peace, and profound revelation.
That is a beautiful way to start. And, that tension you just described, the fierce conquering warlord versus the compassionate healer,
Yeah.
that is the exact friction we are exploring today. We're looking at this really concentrated cluster of events in Luke chapter 7, and it is honestly a masterclass in subverted expectations.
It really is. And the whole mission for our conversation today, our deep dive, is to answer the single most dangerous, burning question circulating in that first century Mediterranean world.
Which is,
Who exactly is this Jesus? I mean, we are going to look at 4 sequential radical encounters that completely shattered the cultural, religious, and the political architecture of the time.
right, because every single one of these stories proves that truth almost always arrives in the exact opposite package of what people demand.
Exactly. And that theme of shattered expectations, it just hits you immediately with the very first encounter we have in the notes.
Oh, the Roman centurion.
Yes, the centurion stationed in Capernaum. Let's set the stage here, because the political dynamics are just fascinating.
They're incredibly complex, yeah.
A centurion is a commander in the Roman army, right, of like 100 men.
Right.
So this man literally represents the occupying imperial force. He is the face of the oppressor.
Basically the enemy.
Exactly. But he has a servant who is critically ill, practically at death's door. Now, a man in his position, he could just requisition whatever he wants.
Oh, absolutely.
He could kick in doors and just demand that a local healer attend to his household. But instead, he goes to the local Jewish elders and asks them to intercede for him.
Which, if you think about it, is an incredibly vulnerable move for a military commander.
Totally.
But the Jewish elders actually agree to be his brokers. They approach Jesus, and they offer this highly transactional argument.
Right. It's very ledger-based.
Yeah, they basically say, look, this Roman actually deserves your help. He's a good guy. He loves our nation, and he even funded the construction of our local synagogue out of his own pocket.
Right. It's like a meritocracy of grace to them. He bought us a building, therefore he has purchased a miracle. It's a purely transactional mindset.
Exactly.
But the twist here is the massive contrast between how the elders view this commander and how he views himself.
This is the best part.
Right. The elders are telling Jesus he is worthy. But as Jesus actually gets close to the house, the centurion sends a second delegation of friends to intercept him.
With a completely different message.
Totally different. He says, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof."
It is a staggering display of self-awareness. I mean, from a man who holds literal life and death authority in that region.
Yeah.
He clearly understands the profound difference between political power and divine authority.
Hmm.
He tells Jesus not to even bother making the physical trip. He just says, say the word and my servant will be healed.
I am absolutely obsessed with his logic here.
It's so good.
He views Jesus's power entirely through a military chain of command lens.
Yeah.
He essentially says, look, I am a man under authority with soldiers under me. I tell one to go and he goes. I tell another to come and he comes.
Right. It's all about verbal authority.
Exactly. If you think about it in modern terms, it's like a massive tech CEO sending an email or a 5-star general giving a strike order.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
They don't need to physically drive down to the server room or the front lines to make it happen. Their authority does the work remotely. It's like it's a remote control faith.
That is the perfect way to conceptualize it. The mechanism of authority just doesn't require physical proximity.
Right.
And the reaction from Jesus is what makes this a theological earthquake. Jesus turns to the crowd following him and says, not even in Israel have I found such faith.
He is genuinely astonished by it.
Completely. And this encounter powerfully foreshadows a massive geopolitical and theological shift.
How so?
Well, you have an outsider, a Gentile, and not just any Gentile, but a Roman occupier grasping the sheer unmerited authority of the kingdom of God faster and more clearly than the religious insiders do.
Wow.
The insiders are still tallying up receipts,
Yeah.
trying to prove the man's worthiness through his real estate donations.
Right. The whole he built us a synagogue thing.
Exactly. But the centurion bypasses the ledger entirely and just recognizes absolute authority.
Man, so we go from this incredible display of long-distance requested healing of a powerful military figure to a scenario that is the exact opposite.
Right. The village of Nain.
Yeah. We move to Nain, where we see an act of intimately close, completely unrequested compassion for someone entirely powerless.
The contrast is jarring. Nain is a small village south of Nazareth. Jesus is walking up to the town gate with a crowd, and he just walks headlong into a funeral procession leaving the city.
And we have to emphasize, this isn't just a sad event. I mean, this is a catastrophic one. It's a widow who has just lost her only son.
We really need to pause on the socioeconomic reality of that moment, based on the notes.
Yeah, let's unpack that.
In the patriarchal structure of the first century, a woman's financial survival and social standing were inextricably tied first to her husband and then to her male children.
Right.
So without a husband, and now without her only son, this woman is facing a terrifying reality. She isn't just grieving a devastating emotional loss. She is staring down absolute financial destitution.
Because there's no social safety net.
Exactly. None. She is effectively a ghost in her own society now, vulnerable to extreme poverty and exploitation.
And so Jesus sees her, and he is moved by this profound, visceral compassion. He walks up and tells her not to weep. But then, and hold on, wait, I need to stop and push back here based on the historical context in our sources.
Okay, go for it.
Jesus walks right up and physically touches the open coffin, the bier they are using to carry the body.
Yes.
But if we look at Levitical law specifically, Numbers 19.11 that's mentioned in the notes, touching a corpse or anything associated with a dead body makes a person ceremonially unclean for 7 days.
Yep.
You are contaminated. So as a religious teacher, intentionally taking on corpse impurity in the middle of a massive crowd is an unthinkable taboo, isn't it?
Oh, it is a massive violation of the cultural boundaries. Under normal circumstances, impurity is highly contagious.
Right.
If you touch something dead, the death infects you. You have to isolate, you have to wash, you have to go through this rigorous purification ritual just to be allowed back into the community.
Right. So by touching the bier, Jesus is willingly absorbing her social and religious contamination.
That is exactly what the crowd expects to happen.
But it doesn't.
No. What actually occurs is a mind-bending reversal of how the natural world works. Instead of the impurity and decay of death infecting Jesus, the purity and the life of Jesus infect the dead body.
Wow.
It's a reverse contagion. Jesus commands the young man to get up, and the dead man sits up and begins to speak.
It is an aggressive public disruption of entropy. I mean, death is supposed to be the ultimate undefeated contaminant. But here, life is the dominant force.
And the terror of the crowd is palpable. Fear seizes them, and they start glorifying God, shouting, "A great prophet has risen among us."
They must have been terrified.
They aren't just happy, they are experiencing the terrifying awe of seeing natural law suspended. They're immediately reminded of the ancient prophets Elijah and Elisha, who also raised the sons of widows centuries earlier.
Right, the notes mention that.
Yeah, they realize they're witnessing a concentration of divine power that hasn't walked the earth in hundreds of years.
Okay, but this creates a massive psychological dilemma. Well, if Jesus is walking around wielding this undeniable, world-bending power healing from a distance, conquering death, casually overriding the laws of physics, why does he absolutely refuse to use that power to free his own people from Roman oppression? Which perfectly explains why his own cousin, John the Baptist, starts losing his mind in a prison cell.
It really is a brilliant pivot in the narrative.
It is.
John the Baptist, the great prophet, who literally introduced Jesus to the public, is sitting in one of Herod's dungeons, likely facing execution, and he sends his own disciples to track down Jesus and ask a remarkably blunt question.
Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another?
Exactly.
Basically, are you the right guy, or did I make a mistake? Which, sounds crazy to us now. But to understand John's crisis of faith, we really have to look at the immense trauma of Roman occupation.
We do.
I was reading through the historical documents we pulled on messianic expectations, specifically the texts from the Dead Sea Scrolls community at Qumran. Their interpretation of prophecies like Isaiah 10 and 11 was incredibly violent.
It's extremely violent. The geopolitical tension of the first century cannot be overstated. The Jewish people were living under the crushing, brutal heel of the Roman Empire.
Right.
They were heavily taxed, marginalized, and routinely crucified for dissent.
Right. And the Qumran texts refer to the Romans as the Kittim. They fully expected the coming Messiah, the branch of David, to be a fierce military warlord.
Yes.
They were waiting for a savior who would physically slaughter the Kittim, drive out the occupying forces, and restore the throne of Israel with a sword. They wanted a bloodbath of righteous vengeance.
So when you place John the Baptist in a dark, damp prison cell, waiting to be beheaded by a corrupt proxy of the Roman government, his doubt makes perfect sense.
It totally does.
He is sitting there thinking, if you are the conquering king, if you have the power to raise the dead, why am I rotting in a cage? Why haven't you marched on the governor's palace?
Yeah.
Jesus was fundamentally failing to meet the job description of a military liberator.
It's like buying a ticket to an explosive blockbuster action movie. You're expecting the hero to kick down the prison doors, dual-wielding weapons, and blow up the enemy stronghold.
Right.
But you get into the theater, and the protagonist is running a mobile charity hospital.
Exactly.
He's hanging out with outcasts and healing the servants of the very Roman army you thought he was supposed to annihilate.
It is a devastating disappointment for anyone holding on to that violent paradigm. So when John's disciples ask Jesus if he is the Messiah, Jesus doesn't just give them a simple yes.
What does he do?
He reinterprets those exact ancient prophecies. He tells them, go and tell John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, the poor have good news preached to them.
So he is quoting the prophet Isaiah back to them, but he is selectively highlighting the miracles of restoration, completely omitting any mention of vengeance.
Precisely. He is forcing John to realize that the kingdom of God is arriving as a kingdom of profound mercy and physical restoration, not a kingdom of violent political overthrow.
Right.
He came to suffer and die to conquer the root of evil, not to wield a sword and conquer Rome.
But we have to recognize how psychologically offensive that is to a man in a cell.
Oh,
To
absolutely.
tell an oppressed, dying prisoner that his enemies are going to receive mercy instead of wrath is a massive pill to swallow. And to perfectly illustrate just how offensive and scandalous this kingdom of mercy is in real time, the narrative immediately plunges us into an incredibly awkward dinner party.
It is the ultimate collision of worldviews.
Truly.
Jesus is invited to dine at the home of a man named Simon, who is a Pharisee.
Yeah.
And Simon's entire worldview, his entire religious framework, is built on the concept of strict separation.
Right, purity laws.
Exactly. For a Pharisee, holiness means keeping the unclean, sinful world at a very safe distance.
So we have a very stiff, formal high society gathering of the religious elite, and then the ultimate party crasher arrives.
The sinful woman.
Yes. The text describes her as a woman of the city who was a sinner. In the context of the first century, that is a polite, coded way of saying she was a known public prostitute.
Her mere presence in Simon's house is scandalous. But her actions escalate the situation to a level of extreme cultural taboo.
What does she do?
She brings an alabaster flask of very expensive ointment. She stands behind Jesus as he's reclining at the table, weeping so heavily that her tears are literally raining down on his feet.
Wow.
And then she unbinds her hair, which was considered deeply inappropriate and sensual in public, and uses her hair to wipe his feet. She kisses his feet continuously and pours the costly perfume on them.
Okay, let's break down the sheer uncomfortable tension in this room, because Simon's passive aggression is palpable in the text. What was actually supposed to happen when a guest arrived at a home of this stature?
Well, in the ancient Near East, the roads are dusty and people wear sandals. Basic hospitality dictated that the host provides water for a guest to wash their feet. You would greet an equal with a kiss of peace on the cheek, and you might offer a few drops of olive oil to soothe the guest's head. Simon provided absolutely none of these.
Just skipped it all.
It wasn't an oversight, it was a calculated, subtle snub. It was Simon's way of establishing dominance and showing that he didn't view Jesus as a true peer or a real prophet.
But this woman steps into that vacuum of hospitality and goes to an unfiltered, extreme opposite.
Yes.
It's a public display of raw, unrestrained emotion, and Simon is just watching this, completely horrified. He says to himself, If this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what sort of woman this is who is touching him, for she is a sinner.
Simon is still locked in that contagion mindset we talked about earlier.
Right, the reverse of Nain.
Exactly. He assumes holiness is fragile.
Yeah.
He thinks that if Jesus really belonged to God, he would be repulsed by her touch. He expects Jesus to push her away to protect his own purity.
But Jesus doesn't do that.
No. Jesus, knowing exactly what Simon is thinking, turns to him and tells a brilliant, devastating parable.
The parable of the two debtors.
Yes. Jesus says there was a moneylender who had two debtors. One owed 500 denarii.
Okay.
To put that in perspective, a denarius was the standard wage for one full day of manual labor. So 500 denarii is nearly 2 years of working every single day without spending a dime.
That is massive financial ruin, an unpayable debt for a commoner.
Exactly. The other person owed 50 denarii, roughly 2 months' wages. Neither of them had the money to pay, so the moneylender graciously canceled both debts entirely.
Wow.
Jesus then looks at Simon and asks a very simple question. Which of them will love him more?
And Simon, probably rolling his eyes at how obvious the trap is, answers correctly. The one, I suppose, for whom he canceled the larger debt.
Right.
And Jesus says, you have judged rightly. But this is where the hammer drops. Jesus contrasts Simon's calculated disrespect with the woman's lavish devotion. And this brings up a crucial theological distinction regarding the mechanics of grace.
Let's hear it.
I want to be absolutely clear on this. Did this woman earn her forgiveness by buying this incredibly expensive perfume and putting on this dramatic display? Like, did she purchase her way back into God's good graces?
That is the most vital distinction in the entire narrative. The answer is an emphatic no.
Okay.
The lavish, dramatic display of love was not the purchase price of her forgiveness. It was the natural, uncontainable result of it.
It's cause and effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jesus turns to the woman and says, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much.
Right.
The love was the evidence that she had already grasped the magnitude of the grace she was receiving. She loved much because she knew she had been forgiven a 500 denarii debt of sin.
And Simon.
Simon, on the other hand, thought his debt was basically zero. He thought he was perfectly clean. So his love and respect for Jesus were non-existent. He didn't even offer a bowl of water for his feet.
It is a total dismantling of religious arrogance. Simon thought he was the clean insider and she was the dirty outsider.
Right.
But Jesus reveals that Simon is the one with the hard, impenetrable heart, while this known, scandalous outcast is the only one in the room who actually understands the sheer gravity of the kingdom of God.
It perfectly ties all these encounters back to our central question. Who is this Jesus? He is an entity who refuses to conform to any human category.
He heals the occupying enemy commander simply because the man understands authority.
Yep.
He touches the dead, suspended in grief, and commands physics to reverse itself. He absolutely refuses to be a violent political warlord, choosing instead to heal the broken and infuriate his own followers.
Yes.
And he allows a socially ruined outcast to crash an elite dinner party to prove that unmerited grace is far more powerful than calculated religion.
Which leaves us with a lingering, provocative thought that Jesus himself introduces right in the middle of this text.
Yeah.
He uses a brilliant analogy to describe the cynical, unsatisfied generation of his time.
Oh, the children in the marketplace.
Yes. Jesus points out the sheer hypocrisy of the public. They rejected John the Baptist because he went out into the desert, fasted, and lived a rigorous ascetic lifestyle.
Right. They called him crazy and said he had a demon.
But then, the exact same public rejected Jesus because he went to dinner parties, drank wine, and feasted with notorious sinners. They called him a glutton and a drunkard.
It's like kids playing a game in the town square. They play a happy song on the flute, and they get mad when you won't dance. Then they sing a funeral dirge, and they get mad when you won't cry. You just cannot win.
Because the issue was never the method. The issue was that the truth didn't arrive in the exact packaging they had pre-approved.
Wow.
They had already built a rigid, unyielding box of what God was supposed to look like, how God was supposed to act, and most importantly, who God was supposed to hate.
Right.
When Jesus refused to fit into that box, they simply rejected him.
So the question for us, stepping back from the first century and looking at our own lives, is how often do we do the exact same thing? How often do we reject profound truth or miss out on transformative grace simply because it doesn't align with our political preferences or our social expectations?
That's the real question.
Do we secretly want a God who just violently crushes our enemies, or are we actually willing to surrender to a kingdom of scandalous, boundary-breaking mercy? It is a question that definitely lingers long after the deep dive is over.
A profoundly challenging thought to carry with us.
It really is. Thank you for dissecting this history with me. And to everyone tuning in, God blesses all the listeners. See you on the next deep dive.